We have one more question we're going to do on problem set 3. We had someone ask specifically about question 7, part E, which is on the lagoon question. So we're going to really quickly go through the first part and then talk about the last part. So it asks, okay, we're going to do that. It asks you to draw a supply and demand curve for lagoon. So here's, and in these situations, he's just like, just be fast. Okay, I guess I could use like a straight line still. So here's the supply and demand for lagoon. And then when a recession hits, you could say that it becomes more, people are less, oh, sorry.
Less to go because their finances are tight.
Yeah, people are less likely to go because their finances are tight. And so they would be on this line. Saying that, so that's essentially saying that at any given price, they are consuming less from lagoon. And then the next question was, show what would happen to supply or demand when the minimum wage is increased. So that's essentially making it just a little more expensive to supply, and so they would increase supply because it's more expensive to provide. So at any given price, they're only supply a small amount of this good of lagoon happening. And so then part D talks about what would happen with the equilibrium. What would happen to the equilibrium quantity after the increase of minimum wage? So if we're just looking at this green line and not the red line, so, or was he looking at both? He was just looking at the one. Okay. If we're looking at this green line, the equilibrium quantity decreases because you'll see it goes from this quantity to this quantity here. So you guys understand how that worked?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then so
would it help to explain D if you?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say that again?
We skipped C. Would it help to explain D if we understood C?
Okay. Yeah, so what would happen to supply and demand when the minimum wage is increased? Okay, so C is kind of this second line, this green line, which is the higher line for anybody who's colorblind. I really try to be considerate about that. But this new supply with the minimum wage increased is higher because at any given price, they can only, so like if we're looking at this price right here, price P, we can only provide, before the minimum wage increases, we can produce this quantity. And then after the minimum wage increase, we can only provide this quantity. So that's kind of what happens when the minimum wage increases, is that at any given price, we can only provide a lesser amount of quantity, and it reduces the equilibrium quantity because this point is a higher quantity than this point. Okay. So that shows that it reduced the equilibrium quantity by about that much. So that kind of covers both C and D. Okay. So then his next question, I'm gonna get rid of these. His next question asks, what happens if both market shocks occur at the same time? So let's put back our original market lines, which were these ones here. So this was the original supply, and then we had the original demand here. And then if we go back to question B, or A, so question A, we drew the line that it's like, this is what happens. And again, he'll be like, it doesn't necessarily look that way. So it might be a line like this. It's not necessarily parallel. And that's totally fine, having not parallel lines happen. So in this situation, both the red and the green lines, oh man, I'm really mean to colorblind people today. They represent the new market of what's happened if both we have the recession and the minimum wage increases. So if we just have one happen, it would be like that, or it would be like that. So, but since both happen, then it's more, then the market looks like that. So when he talks about what shocks or changes happen, he's talking about the shock is, the recession, plus another shock is the minimum wage increase. And then he asks what the overall effect on equilibrium price and quantity would be for Lagoon. And so at least in this graph, you can see that quantity decreases. So a great way to do this is kind of to draw arrows between your original and your new place. And so here quantity decreases because we go left, and price decreases slightly. But you have to understand that we could draw the lines differently and then it would be different. So like if we drew our line like this, then you can see that quantity still decreases, but price increases. So essentially, when we have both shocks at the same time, all our equilibriums are going to be in this triangle here. And so any of these equilibriums are going to have a lower quantity than the original equilibrium, but they may have a higher or lower price. It just kind of depends on how people respond to the shocks, how severe the different shocks were. So for that question 7E, you would say quantity definitely decreases because there's no way we could draw these lines being less than the original demand and more than the original supply, higher than the original supply. That wouldn't be in this triangle, where equilibrium wouldn't be in this space here. And so that means any quantity change is going to be a decrease, and any price change could be an increase or a decrease. We don't really know. So does that kind of make sense how that 7E works? Okay. Yeah. All right. So if we don't have any more questions on that, we are going to go to the review problems in problem set 4. So let's check those out. A lot of these questions, all of these questions, you should essentially have covered similar questions before. Okay. The question number 7 looks like it's question number 7 looks like it's a really similar to the one we just did. So that's, I was just going to say, question number 7 is really similar to the one we just did. So we're going to probably look more at question. So click on question 7. We have our, and here might be a little more difficult because you don't see the Q. But this is essentially demand is this formula. So you could essentially say Q demand equals 100 5p. Supply for this soap is 30p, so it's Q and supply equals 31, that formula. And if you go to the last problem set, it's going to be exactly the same process, except you're going to just have to use different formulas. The numbers are different, but the process is exactly the same. So I would suggest going to that last video and reviewing how to do that process. Graphing the line, and then we went to the equilibrium, and then we didn't really do the consumer. We briefly did the surplus, so, but we're not going to cover that one again. But we are going to look at problem number 8. Hello, Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
So right now we're looking at problem set 4, the review questions, and we're going to problem 8. So sorry, let me look up something real quick. Okay, so with this one, instead of at first really graphing supply and demand, it asks you to graph it asks you to graph two different demand curves for different people. And I'm just going back to make sure, I'm pretty sure that when you do that, you just add the demand curves together to create like the market demand. So right here it says, assume there are only 2 potential buyers in the market for consultant reports on water usage. Peter has a demand of 20 minus 15p. So if we want to look at that, and we can do that. Let's do it on our little whiteboard because that's easier for me. Even though the handwriting is really awful, I'm sorry, guys. So we're gonna have we're gonna draw our graph like regular, supply and demand, and even though it's not the whole market, it's just 2 individuals, we still do the quantity on this side, the price on this side. It's still the same setup because we're still looking at demand, even though it's just for a couple individuals. So for Peter, we'll do him Pete, or he's just in blue. His demand is quantity equals the 20 minus 15p, 1/5p. So this works exactly how we did it with the regular supply and demand charts. So with this one, let's first have Q equal to 0. And so in that situation, we have 0 equals 20 minus 1/5p.
Minus 150.
So what's our first step with that?
150, sorry, I heard you wrong. 20 over here.
So first we're going to want to subtract 20 from both sides. Yeah, that's a 0. Sorry, yes, this is a 0 here. So subtract 20 from both sides, so then we end up with negative 20 equals negative 150.
Times and multiply by 5.
And then in order to get the p by itself, we want to multiply both sides by negative 5.
By negative 5?
Yeah. And then, so we'll end up with p on this side, because negative 1/5 times negative 5 is 1. And so we'll just end up with p on this side. And then what is negative 5 times negative 20? Anyone?
Positive 100.
Yep, 100. Okay, so for Pete,
I don't understand why you're doing negative p. I mean negative 5.
okay,
That's algebra, but
right. So the original formula is 20 minus 150. We have minus 1/5 here. And after we subtract the 20, we have the negative 20
right.
equals negative 1/5p. So I multiplied it by negative 5 in order to get this to be a positive p. And you could do times negative 1 and get rid of the negative sign first and then do the times 5. Either way really works. But you'll end up with 100.
Okay.
So we know that Q at this point, when Q equals 0, P equals 100. And now we'll do it exactly the opposite and have P equal 0. So if we have P equal to 0, the second line, clear up my space. So let me just put it into the formula again. Q equals 20 minus 1/5. And then we replace P with 0. So when we replace P with 0, yeah, so that ends up, we multiply this out because 1/5 times 0 is 0. And so you end up with Q equals 20. So when P equals 0, Q equals 20. So you go along Q until you get to 20, which let's say it's right here. And then you go up until you get 0, which is right here. And so here we have heat. Okay.
We're just going for demand curve right now.
This problem only really talks about demand curve.
Okay, so that is.
We have the two demand
Oh, you're being. Okay, so now we've done Pete. This is Pete in blue. Now we're going to do Jose in red. Let's see. And his formula is Q. Oh, and hello, Travis. So it's easier for you to see. You can come sit behind me or next to me on this side. Either way works. So we've already done Pete. So Jose, quantity equals 40 minus 1/2 P. Okay, so do you guys know what the next step is we should do?
Minus the 40, get the 40.
Okay, what we need to make sure, we need to pick a value for either P or Q.
So we would do 0 again, right? Don't you always start with 0? Isn't that the
Yep. Especially with demand curves, it's so much easier to start with zeros. So if we put Q equal to 0, then we end up with 0 equals 40 minus 1/2 P. Okay, and then what's our next step?
Subtract the 40.
Yep, so we end up with negative 40 equals the negative 1/2 P. And what's our next step?
Times it off by 2.
Yep, we can times it by 2. Or we can also times it by negative 2 to get rid of the negative. Well, times everything by 2. Sorry, these are parentheses. Negative 2. And so what's 40? Negative 40 times negative 2?
80. Positive.
80. So 80 equal, and what's negative 1/2 P times negative 2?
Positive P.
Yeah, that's just going to be positive 1P. And so now we know that when Q equals 0, P equals 80.
80. And then we're gonna put the price as 0 this time.
Right, well, let's graph this point first. So where quantity is 0, which is here, price is 80. It's going to be right there. 80. Okay, and then you're exactly right. Now we're going to put the price equal to 0.
Q equals
Then we have Q equals the 40 minus the 1/2. And then it's P, but we're replacing it with 0.
0.
And so,
So Q equals 40.
exactly. Since 0 times 1, negative 1/2 is nothing, we'll just get out of that. So we have Q equals 40. Yeah, doing the just a review.
And line is going to be different.
So then we go to where quantity equals 40, which we're going to say is right here.
What's the label for these axes?
So this one is quantity, and this axis is price.
Oh, yeah, that's just normal.
Yep, it's
So
just
we don't have a
normal.
label.
Well, I labeled mine right here on the corners.
Yeah, I was doing
And so then we draw a line between these 2 points.
Right.
Voila! So now we have Jose in the red and Pete in the blue.
And 2 demand curves.
And 2 different demand curves.
Okay, so Jose gets
Yeah.
So calculate customers.
So I'm going to make sure I'm doing this right because it goes through and says, like, add the demand curves. And I'm pretty sure you know how to do this. But we're just going to make sure I know how to do this before I lie to all of you. Sorry. So do you guys have any questions at this point? You got the line all figured out?
So if you've got, yeah, I'm trying to do the next part. Consultant prices at 40. So
Sorry, just a second. It's been a long time since I added demand curves, so we're just going to make sure I do this right before I lie to you.
are we still on 8?
Yeah, we're still on 8.
Oh.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, this is like the awkward part of the video. Everybody's going to be watching, and then I'm going to say, just like skip for a few minutes
That's what editing is for.
while I clear things up. I know, but I just don't take the time to edit. It takes time. Okay, so we are on problem set 4, right?
Right.
What's it called? Is the singers. I don't really know. I actually didn't take Econ 110. So we are like at the same. I also did not take Econ before being in Econ. So if you're being discouraged by the fact that you haven't taken Econ before, it's totally okay.
Okay.
I
Somebody
also
just
did not
asked
take
me
Econ.
how, what level we were at for tutor, because some people do tutors.
Okay. I wouldn't be. Yeah, I really don't know what it compares to at the beginning level, especially since it's hard to. Yeah, it's just kind of hard to. Grade, have the same level of class if it's 101, but there's like so many more students, so that's kind of hard. I don't really know
Okay,
if it's like
so
the
do
same.
we need to calculate
Okay.
consumer surplus?
So the first part says graph the two demand curves, but then it says added together. So if we were looking at Jose individually, we would draw this line, and if we did Pete individually, we would draw his line. But we're actually going to add them together. So in order to add them together, we look at any given price, we're going to add the quantity. So at the price, so it kind of, actually, it might be a little bit easier to do this one, to do this first part as a table. So we're going to do it, is this a problem set 4? Okay. So I numbered them this year, so it's been complicated. So in order to add them together, it almost works well to do it as a table. Okay, we're going to do it this way.
Put that.
This is the table that's different than your other tables. So right here we're going to have price, and then right here we're going to have quantity Pete, and then here we're going to have quantity Jose, and then here we're going to have total quantity. So you remember those other ones, we had that little T chart? Imagine, yeah, well, with the problems that we've done today, where we look at the price on one side of the T chart and the quantity on the other side of the T chart. This is essentially the same thing, except we also have these two tables in the middle that just help us figure out what they are. So if the price is 0, how many, and we kind of did these formulas before, so if the price is 0, how many is Pete going to want? So if we look at the formula for Pete, which is this, if price is 0,
20.
okay, so this is a different one. I'm accidentally on the wrong problem, so we're just going to copy this down to be under Pete. Okay, so when Pete is at 0, when the price is at 0, Pete wants 20. Okay, and when the price is at 0, how many does Jose want?
Jose wants 80.
80, or does he just want 40? I think he just wants 40.
don't know.
I think you said that one earlier. So if P is 0, that gets rid of this whole section, and he just wants 40. Okay, so in order to add
Oh, right. Okay, yes.
so to add the two demand curves together, we keep the same price, but we add the quantities. So at 0, combined, they want 60. 20 plus 40 is 60. Now let's imagine if the price were 20. How many, at 20, how many does Pete want? If the price is 20.
We did that before, and that was, oh wait, no, we didn't.
Yeah, this is a little different. So if the price is 20, we would do the,
So we have to do the formula.
yeah, so it would be the Q equals 20 minus 1/5 20. Because we're looking at if the price is 20. So what's 1/5 times 20?
1/5 times 20 is 4.
1/5
of 20 is 4, right?
Yeah. I think it is. Okay, so you would do, in a calculator, you would just do, and then you just do 1 times 1 times 1 divided by 5. Yeah. And so you have Q equals 16. So when the price is 20, Pete wants 16. And then when the price is 20, how much does Jose want? So his formula is 40 minus 1/2. And then he would do the 20. So that's if we put price as 20,
Oh, okay.
then Q equals 16. Okay, so
Sorry.
we have Q equals 40 minus, and then 10. You said 10, because 20 times 1/2 is 10. So then you have Q equals 30. So when the price is 20, Jose wants 30. And so if we add these together, we would get 46. So let's say if the price is 80. How many does Pete want if the price is 80? So what's 1/5 times 80?
80 times 1 divided by 5. 16.
Okay. Is it down? Yeah, it is. Okay.
80 divided by 5.
Yeah.
80 divided by 5 isn't 16. Oh wait, yeah, it is.
Okay. So when the price is 80, Pete is going to want 4. Now how many does Jose want when the price is 80? So we would do the 40 minus 1/2 80. That ends up being Q equals 40 minus 40, which is Q equals 0. So at the price of 80, Jose doesn't want any. So totally at a cost of 80, they want 4. Let's see, what about and at 100, we kind of already did this one with the other problem that we did. P doesn't, and because when the price is 100, Pete doesn't want any and Jose doesn't want any. But I think that's their intercept because that's where Pete intersects it. If you go back to what we did about Pete's demand curve, 100 is the price at which he doesn't want anymore. Anyway, so you just kind of continue doing that process.
Okay, so how do you graph that?
Okay, so when you graph this, you're going to want to go to, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So essentially at each of these points, each of these is a point, except you're only going to be looking at this part and this part. Okay, so imagine this as being one of those T-tables, except you have price here and quantity here. So you would go, let's say this is P, this side is Q. You would go to where the price is 0 combined when the price is 0, they're going to want 80. So let's say that this is 80 right here. Oh, this is not very easy. Okay, we're going to go. I hope you have the table because we're going to do it this way. So when the price was 0, it looked like they wanted 80. Was that right?
Yeah.
Combined, they wanted 80. Okay, and then what was the next point? The price was 20?
20, they wanted 46.
Okay, so at the price of 20, they wanted 46. So we'll say that's right here. And then at a price of 80, they wanted just 4. And at a price of 100, they didn't want any. So what this is going to end up looking like in the end is something like this. Except my dots aren't right.
So this 80 here is going up to that 80? Or
It
to 100?
doesn't quite go all the way to 80 because when the price is 80 combined, they still want to buy 4. So,
So where is this going, this point?
so the best way to kind of add the lines together. So we did when price is 0, they both want 80. And then when the price is 80, they just want 4.
So is that going down like this?
When the price is 100, they wanted 0. So the best way to kind of calculate this is kind of look at both of the lines individually, which we kind of had before, like this. Except it should kind of end up, I guess it should end up looking more, if I was better at graphing like this, it would end up looking more like this.
100 to 20.
So isn't that, I mean, that looks like a line that we started with,
Yeah.
the 2 of them.
Yeah.
So does this line go to here?
Not all the way to 80, but it goes to the point where 80 equals where the price. So if you look at this point right here, if you look at 80, at the price of 80, there's still a quantity demanded of 4. So we don't go all the way to 80 when we do this line. We go to where the price is 80 and the quantity is 4. So we would say the quantity is probably 4. And the best way kind of to graph this is to figure out where these intercepts are.
Like right here, see, 4 to there. And then but I'm not drawing anything through that.
Right. But at this point, you'll want to see, okay, where it intersects here and where it intercepts here. These are the quantities that I want to know. And then I also want to know where it intercepts here, what the quantity is.
I have to go. I have
Yeah,
to
we're almost done. But if you want to make sure that you're doing this right, I would suggest putting in more price points. You could do 60, you could do 40, just any of these numbers, and keep putting them in until you kind of have an idea of what the line looks like. And this kink happens here because Jose drops out of the market. At 80, Jose stops buying completely, and so it's more difficult to have like a combined line, and that's why we get this kink here. So when you're drawing this line, you kind of want to find out where they intersect here and where they intercept here, and find where this kink is, which is where the one who has the lower maximum price drops out of the market. So that's how you want to do the combined, adding them together. So
I have to travel.
no problem. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
How many minutes are left?
We have 10 minutes left here, but I don't have a room after 7.
Oh, so you'll have 5 minutes
I
on
have
the
like
clock.
5 minutes more or less.
Okay, so do we have time to do number 1?
Or the first review
Yes,
problem, or just number 1 on the problem
Yeah,
set?
number 1 on the problem set.
Okay, do you feel like you kind of understood what happened in that last problem? Okay, the most is, to understand the concept, it's more like adding the quantity this way. I mean, the price doesn't get any higher, but it's like adding, okay, so I guess it should be, this wasn't 80, was it? Did we say it was 80?
Yeah. You said 80.
Well, this should, okay, it wasn't 80. Sorry,
what
I
was
lied
it?
to everybody.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay, so this,
Oh my gosh.
let's go back to the whiteboard. This number, sorry, on our table, oh, okay, on our table we had it that this was 60. So trust the table and not my numbers on here because I can't
Okay, so
remember.
should I put 60 there?
Yeah, but so the whole idea is that at any price point, so at this price point, he would buy this much and he would buy this much. And this at that same price point is how much he would buy plus how much he would buy. So right here, the bottom part is the best example because you see at this point, when the price is 0, he's getting 20. When the price is 0, he's getting 40. And so when combined, they're getting 60. So here we'd say when the price is 50, he's getting this much, he's getting this much. And this point here that is out past is this number plus this number. And then this would be x plus y. Does that kind of make a little more sense how we got that? Okay, I really suggest the best way to do it is to go to this
Chart.
chart that we did at first, and yeah, the best way to do it is to go to this chart that we did here and calculate it. Just pick prices, figure out what P would buy, figure out what Jose would buy, and add them together. So 20, P, Jose, add them together. And then just continue to do that until you have enough lines on there that you feel comfortable drawing it on the board. Just make sure that the 2 numbers you must do are when are both times when Q equals 0. So put Q equal to 0 and figure out what price would be, which for P was 100, and then put 0 in for Q here and figure out what price would be, which for Jose was 80. And so we made sure to do those 2 numbers. And then also we made sure to do when price was 0. And then you can just add in other numbers, 60, just whatever other price numbers you feel like you need to remember for something that you're strapped with that. Do you get that, Travis? Oh, oops.
Is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still recording.
Sorry, edit
Yeah. So again, but like I said, I couldn't remember how to do this when we came in here because it's been a long time, but it's just you add the quantities, the price stays the same.
So, yeah. Okay.
All right, and I'll probably stop it there because we have to go. So thank you everybody for being here.